Hi everybody, welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as Ruud van Nistelrooy's Manchester United management era comes to an end and the Ruben Amorim era begins. But there is a delay. There is a work permit delay and we will talk about the ramifications about that. Thankfully, there is an international break, so that probably has been factored in by Manchester United. But how will this delay impact Manchester United? We'll talk about that. Also, Bruno Fernandes revealing why Garnacho didn't celebrate his goal and sending a warning to the fan base. Or is he? Is he? We'll talk about that. Also, Ligt, a very interesting interview with him after the game today, talking about how there's not a lot of difference between Ten Hag and Ruud, apart from one thing. We'll talk about that as well. And anything else you want to get into this Sunday night bonus stream, because I wasn't going to do one tonight because there's been so much going on with the match and the fan forum. But something has popped up and I was very interested and intrigued by Bruno's comments about Garnacho that I wanted to talk about. So we will talk about that as well. But look, honestly, this is a big story in the sense that there is a delay with Ruben Amorim. What is this delay? Well, effectively, Manchester United are still waiting on a work permit for him. He's losing 2-0 to Braga in his final game at the moment, by the way. Whether that matters or not, I don't know. Just on that, he's losing 2-0 to Braga. They're away to Braga Sporting. It's his last game in charge. They've had 73% possession. But they've had no shots on target. So they are losing 2-0 at the moment, but we'll keep you up to date if that changes. Maybe he doesn't want to come, says Constantine. So basically, Ruben Amorim will leave Sporting tonight. It's his final game. He'll fly to Manchester tomorrow. But there is a work permit a delay that means that he cannot train the Manchester United first team until he has that work permit. Now, Manchester United are saying this is not something they're concerned about. It will be sorted very, very quickly. But that is the situation. Now, whether he can do what he can actually do, I don't know. I don't know whether this means that we can have an official interview with him tomorrow, which people were expecting. But he can't train the first team until he gets the work permit. However, it's mentioned in a number of outlets, but we've mentioned this before. There is no training this week. You might see Marcus Rashford off doing his shooting practice with his coach that he does that we normally see, and you might see maybe Mason Mount or go to Mount Everest. Maybe he'll go to Dubai with Luke Shaw and do some running there. Like, everybody does individual stuff this week, but there is no Manchester United official training until next week. They don't actually. I think there's this belief that if you don't go on international duty, you're at Carrington working on a 3-4-3. It doesn't happen. It didn't happen with Ten Hag. It didn't happen with Mourinho. It didn't happen with Ollie. When you've got a 2-week international break, there is nothing going on this week. It is a week off for everybody. If you remember correctly, I think Ten Hag went on a holiday in the last one for the week. There'll be a meeting with the board on Tuesday as per normal, but there is no training this week anyway. So Amorim won't actually take his first official training session until early next week, which will be more than enough time for us to get the permit done. I think what the plan was for Amorim this week was to ingratiate himself into the club, the way it runs, introduce himself to a few people, have conversations with people like Ruud van Nistelrooy, settle in Manchester, etc., etc. So Sporting have got one back, by the way. Great stuff. Keep us up to date on that. So yeah, that is the situation with Amorim. There is a delay, but he can't train the team until next week, and it's not expected to be a major issue with regards to that. But it could have an impact on whether he can do an official press conference or interview tomorrow. But that's where we are with that. I want to see his interview, says Marvin. Yeah, that's the thing that bothers me, and that's the thing that nobody will really give any update on, is that can he do an official first interview for Manchester United when he's not got a work permit? To which the answer has to be yes, because he was talking about Manchester United as manager of Sporting. So I think we can still get the interview. I still think he can be at Carrington doing stuff, but apparently he can't officially train them. So that's where we are with that. Also want to bring into the show tonight something that Bruno Fernandes said after the game. Now, Garnacho scored a worldie today, if you didn't see it. Fantastic goal. Didn't celebrate normally after the game. Bruno Fernandes had this to say: Garnacho scored a banger, but didn't celebrate like he should because he thinks he has lost faith from some fans. I told him people will always moan, but lots of people like you and enjoy what you do. What? I told him people always moan, but lots of people like you and enjoy what you do. You know what? I want to say this in the right way. So basically, Bruno's saying you didn't celebrate properly because he feels like he's lost the faith of the fans. Mate, we know what happened on Thursday night, and it never should have happened. It was amateur hour. It shouldn't be happening. Like, you shouldn't be signing pictures and be being filmed told to being coached by a fan. That's just not how it works. Fans in the ground shouting and screaming because you miss a shot. Me shouting and screaming, you tweeting, is very different to getting in a fan's face, filming them, and having in a player's face and filming them having a go at them. That is a minority. It might be a vocal minority, but it is a minority. We have people who don't like Garnacho in this chat. They are entitled to their opinion. But I'm absolutely convinced that the vast majority of this fan base wants Garnacho to succeed in a Manchester United shirt. And I'm absolutely convinced that he needs to move past that very, very quickly. To not celebrate a goal like that at Old Trafford, where you won't score 20 of them in your career at Old Trafford. Like, it was a really good goal. To not celebrate that because you feel that you're letting the fans down is really sad. Because criticism will always be there. You play for Argentina. You will get criticised. You will get people saying you're shit. But this is the problem. He's only 20 years of age and people don't understand. I remember when I was 20, it's a very different thing to being 30 or 40. He's a young kid, and it's a shame that has got to him so much that he won't celebrate that goal. Now, but I'm not going to be a hypocrite. There will be times where Garnacho has a bad game and we'll give him 4 out of 10 and say he was shit today. And there won't be a problem with that because that is football. This is an entertainment sport, and you will get criticism. You will get called shit if you have a bad game. Doesn't mean the fans don't want you to have a good game. You will get called all sorts of names by rival fans, and there will be elements of this fan base who just want to see the world burn, who will just be toxic and hate you because you're keeping their favourite player out of the team. But you will also have players that want you in the team over that other player and treat that player like shit. That's what Player FC is. There are people that want Rashford over Garnacho who hate on Garnacho, and there's people that want Garnacho over Rashford and hate on Rashford. Neither of those is good. Neither of those are good. You know, I want them both to play fantastic because I want Manchester United to have depth and do well. But the vast majority of fans just want Garnacho to be the player he can be. And I think it's sad that he didn't celebrate the goal, but realistically, that's part of growing up. You've got to just ignore that minority and appreciate that what Manchester United is actually all about. The reason we have a youth player on the bench since the 1930s, the reason we have the Busby Babes in the class of 92 is because above any other club in England, for decades, we have developed and nurtured young players. And whilst you'll get a vocal minority who are abusive and toxic, the vast majority of this football club's fan base understand that that's what makes Manchester United what it is. So celebrate the goals, because the crowd would have loved it. Haters are going to hate. You're always going to have people that don't like you. But I think Bruno saying that maybe just makes everybody think a little bit about it. But yeah, it's a shame that he didn't do that. And Bruno's right. People will always moan, but lots of people like you, enjoy what you do. And the best way to deal with it is, the best way to deal with criticism is to do things like that. Because you know what? A hater of you as a player has got to be right every single game, every single minute. You've only got to be right once. So all this Garnacho shit and this, that, and the other, he's got to be shit every single game, every week, every single minute. And then he scores an overhead goal against Everton, or he scores goals like today, or he sets somebody up and he sits them down. So, you know, this is why new players and young players need support, because Manchester United is a pressure cooker. And I think people like Bruno Fernandes can deal with it because he's used to it. Bruno's not been good for 8 months, in my opinion. I think he's a lot better, and I thought today was good, but he's not been good. But he deals with it because he's used to it. These are kids. These are up-and-coming players. These are new players. Look at Agate today. You know, I saw him get booked. Did he get booked against? Who did Agate get booked against? And he looked like he was going to cry. Like the pressure just looked to be getting on top of him. We've seen it with Xerxes as well. But you know, today, Xerxes came on at 3-0, played with confidence. Nice little link-up play. Agate played today. Yeah, it was against Chelsea with Agate, wasn't it? Look, I think we're heading in the right direction. I think we've got a really exciting manager coming in. And, you know, I think Amad and Garnacho are very exciting players to have at the football club. I think there's plenty of others. I genuinely think it's almost like, I think some of us in the fan base just almost put an arm round those players that are struggling a little bit and just say they're going to prove you wrong. Said it, you know, Garnacho's done it. Agate's done it. I think Xerxes is going to do it. I think the next one who's going to do it is Rasmus. I do. I really think Rasmus under Amorim is going to start working. I think at the moment he's getting a lot of target. I think he will come good. We'll see whether I'm right in a month. But I've got total confidence in him, Garnacho, Agate. I think Xerxes will prove to be a good player. I think De Ligt's ridden that storm as well. It's the same old story with Man United. And I don't know whether it's some of our fans picking up on morons online or in journalism or on the radio or on the TV. But a lot of this is happening. Like, De Ligt was apparently shit in the first few weeks. Then it was Agate, now it's Xerxes, now it's Garnacho, now it's Rasmus. I expect all of those players to end up being important players for us. Great captain behaviour from Bruno, Magnifico. Look, you can't argue with Bruno today, Eduardo. I mean, what was your thoughts generally on Bruno Fernandes today? I mean, I didn't give him man of the match. I think Agate deserved it, but he pushed him close. And if Bruno could do that before, that's to performance from Bruno should be his minimum. I was thinking about that before we started doing the show. The performance from Bruno today, I agree with AL. I thought he played well, but that should be what we get every week. I don't think it was vintage Bruno. I don't think it was superb Bruno. I think he's better than that, but that should be his minimum. That should, 7, 7.5. That's what we should be getting from Bruno every week. Not 5, not 5.5, not 6. That's what Bruno's good enough to do every single week. And it was composed, it was measured, it was better. The goal. How many times have we seen Bruno put that over the bar this season from that position? Puts it in the bottom corner. Nice ball into Garnacho for his goal. Gets on the end of a cross, ends up going in. That performance from Bruno was not amazing. That's what we should be. That's what I expect from Bruno Fernandes on £300,000 a week at 30 years of age with the captain's armband on at Man United. That's what his minimum game should be. Now, he might listen to that or hear that from somebody and go, oh, their expectations are unrealistic. Bruno, that's praise. I'm saying you're good enough to do that every week as a minimum. And I think you're better. I think on your good games, you do even better than that. So hopefully Amorim can bring that out. Because it was interesting what De Ligt said, actually. De Ligt made a really good point after the game. And I'll get the quote, so I want to get it word for word. So he said after the game, the difference is that with Ten Hag, we had games where we played very well, like at West Ham with very big chances and we didn't score. Against Leicester, we scored 5 goals in the Carabao Cup. We've scored 3 today. Sometimes football is quite strange because luck takes over. That's a compliment to Ruud, but also to Eric. It's not that there's been a big change. It's the dynamic that has changed. And if the dynamic changes, everyone becomes more confident and you start winning games. It's as simple as that. And I think that's a really intelligent observation from De Ligt, because I think it's sort of like where I was after West Ham a couple of weeks ago. It was like, I don't really want us to sack Ten Hag because I don't like sacking another manager, but it got to a point where enough was enough and something had to change. And I think that's what De Ligt's saying. He's saying, look, it's not like we're playing massively different to how we played under Eric, but the dynamic with Eric going, the dynamic changes. Suddenly you score a couple of goals, confidence comes, and results come with that. I don't think the way we're playing is massively different to Ten Hag. I think when Amorim takes over, you're going to be, this is massively different. And I think that's why Ruud deserves a lot of credit, because he's maintained the status quo to a certain sense and managed to get results whilst we wait on Amorim. So, look, I think that goes back to Bruno for me. I don't think Bruno's massively changed the way he's been playing this season when he wasn't doing very well today. But I just think it was more measured and things came off better. And maybe that's because he's in a better frame of mind. Results breed confidence. at the end of the day, don't they? Excellent from Bruno. Just needs to learn at certain points of the game how to control the tempo. And I agree, consistency is needed. Good win, says Connor. I enjoyed the game after a long time, says Mojo. I think today was just a really, you know what? I think you're absolutely spot on. I think today was a really enjoyable game because we got that Bruno Fernandes performance, which we absolutely crave. We got the goal from Garnacho, which absolutely shut up the toxicity. We got the Agarte man of the match performance, which completely shut down all this nonsense that he's a flop. We got a really consistent performance from Ligt and Mazraoui again, and I think they've settled in perfectly. We got the cameo from Xerxes, which was really good. We got the continuation of Ahmad, which was really good. We got Casemiro and Agarte playing well as a pivot, which gave us a platform. Yeah, look, I think Dalot, Rashford, Rasmus were disappointing, but there's a new manager coming in, and I certainly think with Dalot, Rashford and Rasmus, they can be much better. And I still think that Rasmus's major problem is that I think it's frustrating being up front and not scoring goals and then not getting chances to score goals. I think with Dalot, he's played a lot of football and probably too much football. I mean, realistically, he'll be off to international football, won't he? And he could do with not. I think Martinez silently as well with Onana. I think Martinez silently with Onana is not silently because I think people are acknowledging it. But I think Martinez and Onana are just steadily finding consistency and having, you know, a good run of games as well. So, and on top of that, you've got the likes of Mount back, you've got Luke Shaw coming back, you've got Malacia coming back, you've got Maguire coming back, you've got Yoro coming back, Mainu coming back. So there's a lot of hunger around Manchester United next week when they come back training with Amorim, and I think it's going to be very interesting. Players will play well for a bit, says Shotgun Justice, but they are overpaid divas who will now throw a tantrum when they come into a tough stretch, tale as old as time. I can't wait for Rasmus to silence people, says Guy Fawkes. Great captain behaviour from Bruno, magnifico, says Eduardo. Scooby-Doo has done what Arsenal couldn't, says United. And do you think we can break 2 figures on Anfield against United next year, says Robert Carlson. And Planet Faz needs to be banned from Old Trafford, says Samuel. Sorry for reading that, I sort of went ahead. Only 4 points to the top 4. Hoping for an Amorim bounce. I hope players step up, says Mojo. Garnacho seemed downed. Not good. He is a kid, says La Familia. Hi, Mark. Huge win today on my brother's birthday. Can you say Xander is a birthday prat? Much love, says Tiff. There you go. Maybe he doesn't want to come after all, says Constantine. That was about Amorim. Obviously, Ruud van Nistelrooy spoke after the game as well about his future. He said he expects to know today or tomorrow. It's interesting with Ruud because there's a part of me that... Oh, and let me just run a poll on this, actually. It's always a good backdrop. Should Ruud stay? Now, I said in my match reaction that I just don't see the point. Because what is he waiting for? Is he waiting for Amorim to say, I want you to be an assistant manager? In which case, that's incredibly naive on Amorim to give Ruud an assistant manager role at Manchester United when he doesn't know him and has never worked with him and has got his own team. So if Ruud knows he's not going to get the assistant manager role, then the best you're going to get is a striker coach. You've just been managing Man United. You've managed PSV. You were the assistant coach and now you're the striker coach. What would you wait around for that? You know, and what I mean by that is if I'm Ruud van Nistelrooy and I go, yes, I'll take that. So you're there putting the cones out, practicing the striking role. Man United are successful with Amorim, with his own team. You're never going to get any real credit for that. You know, you're always going to be a bit like the set piece coach. Every now and again, people will go, oh, Ruud's helped out with that. You've been a manager of PSV. You've been a manager of Man United for 4 games. You've been the assistant manager, and now you're a striking coach. I don't see how that works out. And also, everybody knows you'd like to manage Man United. So if there's any problems, you're going to be put forward again. I also think as well, if he takes the job as a striking coach in 2 or 3 months, if the Southampton job comes up and he gets linked to it, he would take it anyway. So it doesn't seem to me like there is a long-term job for Ruud as a striker coach because he's better than that. And he's proved that over the last 2 weeks. He's better than being a striking coach. I mean, look, if he wants to do it and he's happy to sit in the background and be a striker coach and not be front of house and not be seen and everything like that, but he's still going to be there on a match day, isn't he? He's probably going to be sat on the bench and then the camera goes to Ruud van Nistelrooy if Man United are losing 3-0 and it's like, it doesn't work for him. It doesn't work for Ruben. I'm absolutely convinced he's gone tomorrow. Because even if he stays, he'll go. And even if he stays, it'll be problematic down the line because the cameras will be on him and all that. So I don't see him staying. I don't see how it benefits him staying. I don't see how it benefits Amorim staying. I think you've got to have a clean slate and a clean break. But I hope he gets a really good job. And as Marvin said, he could leave on a high. I would say you leave, and within a month, I think he'll have a job. Somewhere he'll have a first-team manager's job. But I think he's done a good job over the last 2 weeks. And him and Rennie Heck are very unfortunate. I don't think Rennie Heck gets any mention at all. He's been working with Ruud over the last 2 weeks as his assistant. They're both very, very unlucky because they only came in 3 months ago and now, they're in that position. Ruud had a great interim period, but he needs more experience before he's considered to come back in the future as the first team manager, says Connor. Will they be available when we hit hard times? The season isn't over. If we can pick up form, they can give their all in a new system, says Neem. That Xerxes crossfield pass, by the way, wow, says Connor. I think Xerxes looked really good, actually, in his build-up play. I know it was a cameo, but it looked a lot more confident. I've read that one from Connor Walsh as well. Darren says, I would love Ruud to stay, but we need to be ruthless. We want success, and sadly, sentimentality isn't in the case. Love Ruud, but he has to go. I only agree with the last bit, Darren. I love Ruud, but he has to go. I don't want him to stay. I know how the media works. I know how this fan base works at its worst, and I don't want him to stay. I just think it's just a potential problem if things get a bit bumpy with Ruben. Look, we all want it to go well, but we all know it could go bad in the first year. And if it goes bad in the first year, we need to stick with Amorim. But imagine a scenario where in his first 4 weeks, he plays Arsenal and Man City, and we lose both games 3 or 4-0. And then in March or whenever we play Liverpool, they beat us. He'll have been here 4 or 5 months then. The knives will be out. And then the cameras will be on Ruud. And it'll be like, the players don't like Amorim's style. They don't think he knows what he's doing. They liked it better under Ruud. And then it just grows. And it's sad. It's sad, but it's true. And you know why it's true? Because for 4 months, we were told that Ruud was brought here by Ineos. And when Ten Hag got sacked, the truth came out because Ruud told us he was brought here by Ten Hag. So don't tell me that lies and manipulation can't sink this football club. So for me, as much as I like Ruud van Nistelrooy, I think he has to go because I just think it's a problem that you can remove as much as you can remove a player. I really don't get it. Why some fans are against these new players. Are they really fans of the club, says Rub. I don't know, mate. I genuinely don't know. I understand with Ten Hag that I was probably in the minority of not wanting to sack another manager. But I felt at times over the last few weeks, I don't know why there is so much argument about it when you're saying give Xerxes time, give Agate time. And there's quite a lot of people in the chat and online going, nah, he's washed, he's shit, he's another bad signing. And I'm like, I don't really get the angle. For one, I don't trust your opinion to tell me a new signing that's only been here a few weeks is shit. You're not at Carrington. You're just a fan like everybody else, watching what we see, guessing. And for two, why would you want to say that? Why would you want to publicly demean, abuse, and write off a United player? How does that benefit your team? So I don't understand it, Rub, is the honest answer. I think even if you thought they were shit, you'd keep it to yourself and hope that you're wrong. Look, a lot of people were saying it about Anthony very, very early. I don't really get it because there's plenty of examples of players that start off badly and come good. And it's difficult. The Premier League is the most difficult league in the world to get used to because of the intensity of it, the demands. The reason the Premier League is the hardest league in the world is because it is the most competitive and it is the quickest. So you play at a quicker level more intensely. So if you play in the Italian league like Xerxes, it's slower and not every game is as tough. And it's the same if you play in the Eredivisie, and it's the same if you play in the Bundesliga, and it's the same if you play in La Liga. But if you're in the Premier League, you're playing at a quicker level, at a more intense frequency, because they don't have the Brentfords, the Brightons, the Nottingham Forests. They don't have that depth in their league at that intensity. So every game is quick, and it's every week. There is no real easy game. maybe Southampton. So you bring a player into that environment and straight away, you're not going to get used to that straight away. That's going to take you a few weeks, maybe a few months to get used to. On top of that, the scrutiny of the media is completely different as well. You've got to get used to that. You might have to get used to the language. You might have to get used to, living in a new town and everything like that. There is so much, and these are human beings. And then you've got to get used to a completely different set of players. So it's not just the intensity, it's not just the frequency, it's not just the language, it's not just the media. It's also the country that the town that you're living in, the house, the new house. But you're also not playing with the same players either. It takes years, and it takes time. So it baffles me that people think Agate is going to come in and just be, the next Kante. It's going to take time. Mojo's just gifted 20 memberships. Thank you very much for that. But yeah, as I've said to you countless times, there seems to be an angle from certain fans who just seem to want the world to burn. And look, there are people like that. There are just ridiculously negative people, self-centered people, I want to be right people. But I think the majority just want Man United to win. And it's never going to work if you want your Man United to win with the players that you want to play, because you're not the manager. I don't really care what the team is that Amorim picks. Really, I don't care. I have players that I'd like him to pick, but if he doesn't pick them and we win, I'll love it. I'll absolutely love it. Do you think we have a chance for the title this season? I think you're absolutely pissed, Giraffe. Absolutely not. No. I tell you what I did want to go back to, though, and I don't think it will get lost. Why do you think Ruud van Nistelrooy, 2-2 for Sporting, he's not going to go out with a loss? They're back level, 2-2. There is only 9 minutes to go. Marita made it 2-1, and Holmlund has made it 2-2. They've had 73% possession, by the way. Could they get a late winner? I will keep you updated as that happens. But what were your thoughts today on the substitutions of Dalot and Rashford so early in the game? So early in the second half. I mean, literally, I thought they were. It wasn't normal, is what I'm trying to say, because normally you have your halftime chats, and you might say to a player, "I'm thinking about taking you off," but you wouldn't expect to get taken off until at least the hour mark. He was taking those players off in the 52nd minute, which means Garnacho and Johnny Evans were being told to warm up probably 2-3 minutes into the second half. Like, he didn't give them any time at all. It was like something sparked inside that he may as well sub them at half time. They got absolutely no time at all. So I thought that was, I don't remember that happening. When was the last time that happened? Forget him being an interim. I don't think Ten Hag ever did it. I certainly don't think Ollie ever did it. Don't even think Mourinho did it. But if he did, that's a long time ago. Yeah, I think it was significant and insignificant. It was significant to do it because I think it can only be because of they weren't playing well. But to do it so quick, I think was really interesting. Dalot and Rashford were not tracking back, says Keel. Yeah, well, that's what I was trying. I was probably going to get to that point. I think there was something that he wasn't happy with at half time, and he clearly said, "Change. I want you to stop doing that." I remember Dalot definitely had a bad start to the second half. They were getting at him again, and I think he just thought, "I've got to change it." But I don't remember Rashford doing anything. I don't remember Rashford doing anything. I never noticed Rashford do anything to get. I mean, I know he didn't have a good first half, but I don't remember him doing anything. I do remember Dalot in the first couple of minutes struggling, but he made it. He made those subs. Now maybe he made those subs because it's like, I'm going tomorrow anyway, so I'm just going to show my managerial qualities that I don't give a shit about reputation. I'll make the things done. I'll get the things done. But I thought it was very interesting to do it in his final game. My guess is that Dalot is overplayed. His performance got worse every match. Let him rest, and he'll be back to his form. Florian, I do agree, and I wish he wasn't playing international football, but he is. And Andy Boyce says, I think he might have been putting himself in the shop window. What do you think the 11 will be with Amorim, says Man United Hodge. Hope you're doing well, pal. Not seen you for a while, but thank you very much for your super chat. I'm going to do a video on that this week. I want to actually spend these 8 o'clock shows over the next week delving into a lot of where we go from here, what we're expecting and all that sort of stuff. So we can probably do that together because I'd like to do that. But I've got a few, I mean, I can guess, but yeah, it's going to be exciting. As Man United fans, we need to protect our own, says Jack Adams, 100%. Agree with that. And Sid T says, I want to say this delicately, but I worry about the support system around Garnacho. He's been a father for a year, so emotionally he should handle criticism better. I don't want to go into his private life, says Sid T. He's 20, mate. I mean, I had my first child at 20 in my mid-20s, I think. For the fact that I can't remember, that's a bit worrying. But yeah, I'd have been about 26, and I felt young. I felt very young. But I was ready, but I felt young. If you'd have given me a child at 20, I was living in Dublin. I was out all the time. I was just living a young person's life. To be 20 years of age, trying to develop as a footballer at Manchester United, a father, a multimillionaire, you know, everybody scrutinise everything you do. I can't imagine what it's like walking in those shoes. So, yeah, it's difficult. But look, I think we are. It's been said about Rashford, hasn't it? It was said about Paul Gascoigne. The people they have around them. It is very, very important. But it's also very, very basic. Like, I think every single one of you could give the advice that's needed to Rashford or Bruno or Garnacho or Rasmus or anybody else. And the advice is this: if you want to be the best, then you've got to be your own worst critic. You've got to, because then no other critic can get to you. You've got to be your own worst critic. If you have a bad game, you've got to look in the mirror and say, you know, what did I do wrong? And you've got to work at it, and you can't blame shift. You've got to go, right, okay, I'm not listening to this external noise because I wasn't happy with my performance. I'm going to be better tomorrow. And the best way to deal with criticism is to silence it with better performances. Paul Pogba said this. Cristiano Ronaldo has made a bloody career out of it. He is inspired by criticism to a point where I think he's obsessed with it. I mean, I've listened to some of Ronaldo's interviews recently, and I worry about him when he stops playing the game, because he's still massively obsessed with proving people wrong. And when football disappears from his life, I don't know Ronaldo, but I think he's got to fill that void, because he's spent all his life. Look at his body, look at his diet, look at everything is about proving people wrong, and being the best. So that's how you do it. You're an elite sportsman for a certain period of time. Don't chase validation from fans, because fans are fickle. We are, because we want to be entertained. Mike has just gifted a membership. Thank you, Mike. A lot of fans, not all in this day and age, have the time or patience to give the new players the ability to adjust, says Terence. You know what's changed with football as well? I've been saying this to you for years. I used to think it was the FIFA generation, you know, the game. Because when you're playing a computer game and you've got your ultimate team with Messi and Ronaldo and this card and that card, they play bloody brilliant every time you play with them, because they're a computer-generated card with amazing stats. They don't have a bad leg, or they don't, they haven't, but in reality, and people who've been watching football for a long period of time will know this. I remember Alan Shearer before the 96, the biggest, the all-time Premier League goal scorer, Alan Shearer, went through bad spells. And I remember before the Euros in Euro 96, people wanted him to be dropped because he hadn't scored a goal for England in ages. And then I think he won the Golden Boot. Human beings go through bad spells. But we live in a world where in football, I was saying today about Martinelli for Arsenal, I just said he's not it. Every time I watch Arsenal, I think he's just really average. He works hard, but he's really average. Then he scores a goal and everyone's going, sit down. He sat you down. I'm like, he scored a goal where the keeper should have saved it from about 6 yards out. That doesn't make me wrong based on the last 12 months of watching him, just because he scores a goal. But that's the world we live in. It's instant gratification FC. If you miss a shot, you're shit. And if you score a goal, but you've been shit for 6 months, you're brilliant. It's weird. It's really, really weird. So I think that, look, TikTok, Instagram shorts, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, swipe left, swipe right. Everything is about instant gratification. So that is bad for footballers because they are human beings, and no footballer in the history of football has put in an amazing performance every week, every game of their career. Not even Messi and Ronaldo have managed that, although they were unbelievably consistent, and that's why when they retire, people will look back on the Messi-Ronaldo era as probably one-off, because they were incredibly good for an incredible long period of time. Most footballers just can't sustain that, even the best. So, but we live in a world of impatience because that's what society dictates to us. It's all about swipe. What's next? That's why long form films don't do well anymore. But when I was growing up, that's what it was all about. I think Sporting are winning. They are 3-2. Wow, we should have done a watch along. Harder has just made it 3-2 in the 89th minute for Sporting. They were 2-0 down away to Braga in Amorim's last game. And of course, Amorim used to manage Braga. They have come back and won 3-2 from 3-2 down. I think if you're a Sporting fan, you just cannot complain with the send-off that Amorim has been given. The demolition of Manchester City in his last home Champions League game, and then 2-0 down to Braga, you've come back and won 3-2. The interesting thing and sad thing for Sporting is that the journey will end in November, because what would they have achieved this year? Certainly, I think they'd have won a Premier League title. Sorry, not Premier League. I think they would have won the Portuguese title. But, yeah, that's a great way to go. Things are about to get a lot harder for Amorim tomorrow, says Simon. And Delo has dropped since linked with Madrid, says Kyle. Brandon says, on Rashford, Brandon's been a member for 30 months, by the way. Thanks to all the members. Amorim Time, says North Paul, who's another member. And watch Sporting win the Champions League without Amorim, says Nomad Joe. But didn't that happen to Bruno? The minute Bruno left, I think Amorim came in, and Bruno had never won a title with Sporting because they hadn't won one in 20 years. And then since Bruno's left Sporting, I think they've won 3. If they win this one, it'll be 3 in 5 since he left, and they'd won none when he was there. Rashford seems hesitant or disinterested, says Brandon. He stopped taking people on, always seems to pass backwards, and I don't see work rate. Let's see what happens under Amorim. Yeah. I've got a bit of an update coming in here. Bit of a Sam's just messaged me who does a lot of work for us behind the scenes around source information, everything. So understand the process with Ruben Amorim's work permit is all a short and stand process. Hoping it will be concluded by the end of the week, and it would be the exact same for a player or coach for any club post Brexit. So there we go. That's true then, isn't it? It's looking like he obviously. I don't know how that impacts on what work he can do, interviews wise, but apparently he end of the week it should be sorted, and it's quite a normal process for anybody. Some people will say, well, why has the work permit not been done already? He's literally working now, this minute, in Portugal for Sporting. He can't have that lined up when he's in a job for somebody else. So I think there is that sort of crossover. 4-2 for Sporting. Unbelievable. We've just missed out on an amazing watch along there. Yeah, fantastic. Mojo's just gifted another 20 memberships as well. Absolute legend, Mojo. We love Mojo in the chat, even though he went missing for 2 weeks. I think everyone was panicking, but he's definitely back now. Thank you very much, Mojo. Was at the game today. Such a good atmosphere. Loved the rude send-off at the end, says Jay Rayner. And Keel Robinson says, I think the low has dropped since linked with Madrid. Greg says it would have been a good watch along. You know what? I thought it was on Friday, and I was going to do it on Friday. And then I looked today, and it must have kicked off at, well, it must have been 7 o'clock. No, I didn't realise, unfortunately. But it's a good win, and it's a good send off, and the work starts tomorrow, of course. But he won't be training the team until next week anyway, and the work permit's not going to be in till then anyway. Okay, I think I'm going to go and get in the bath. I've had a long, hard day. I was only going to do half an hour. We need to buy harder. I'm not a member, but love watching you, says Constantine. Thank you very much. 3-4-3 system seems like a you score 2, I'll score 5 style of play, says Jace. Well, it was 3-4-3 against Man City, and it becomes quite defensive if you want it to. I think it's just a very adaptive system, and that's why he said that. Danny Boy says, is there a Christmas show this year? No, there was meant to be one, but the venue let us down. So hoping to do one in January, which hopefully we'll have the details for you in the next couple of weeks. Don't forget your Christmas jumpers, by the way. Links in the description. Scan the QR code. No, there's no QR code. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's been a long day. Seb won in the cup as well, if anyone's interested. Yeah, long day today. Up early. Had to do a few bits. Took Seb to football. Got back. Straight into the Man United game. Then Chelsea, Arsenal. Then had to pop out and then did this show as well. But all in all, a good day. It's one of those days where everything's gone well. So, yeah, fantastic. And nice to finish the day up with you. Sporting 142, says Gail as well. Thanks everyone who's subscribed, by the way. That's 967 now. So we are closing in on 2 million. So if you haven't subscribed, I'm sure most of you had, please do click that subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner. It's free to do it. And on the poll, should Ruud van Nistelrooy stay? Yes, 40%. No, 60%. I think this thing is time to move on. Fresh start. I don't really want any legacy from the past. I think let's have a fresh start. Let's move on. And let's see what's to come, because I think this international break is going to be really interesting. And then I think when the games come back, it's going to be even more interesting. Somebody's talking about Scott McTominay. I'm glad he's doing well. But I wouldn't take him back never. I think people need to start understanding that we need to be selling players that aren't part of our future for good money, and then we need them to go elsewhere and do well so that more people want to buy our players. McTominay, Wan-Bissaka, if they do well away from Man United and Man United start doing well, more people want to buy our players because they're good players. It's what Man City have been doing for years. It's what Chelsea do. You get good money for your players if they go off and do well somewhere else. You don't go, they're doing well at somewhere else, I wish we hadn't sold them. That's really weak mentality, because we need to be able to sell players for good prices. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate that. And we're back tomorrow. I've got a cracking, actually, early morning show tomorrow. Don't normally do these. It's 7 o'clock tomorrow. Watch out. Get your notifications on by subscribing. Got a video going out at 7 o'clock tomorrow. Give it a watch. Take care, everyone. Speak to you all in a bit.